Hello, I'm Gordon Lane, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Nikon D40. Here it is, the D40, Nikon's latest entry-level budget digital SLR. It replaces the earlier D50 and, like that model, features 6 megapixel resolution and a 3x optical zoom lens in the standard kit package. So what's new about the D40? Well, Nikon's targeting first-time digital SLR buyers with this camera. These could be people who are perhaps previously owned a film SLR or maybe upgrading from a compact digital camera. So to target these people, Nikon has first of all made the D40 very small and very light. But not so small or light that it's actually compromised in terms of comfort or handling. In fact, despite being one of the smallest digital SLRs on the market at the moment, the D40 is very comfortable to hold and use. It also feels surprisingly good in terms of build quality. It may be a budget camera, but it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart or give you any trouble. In terms of those first-time DSLR users, Nikon's really tried to be as helpful as possible, and as we'll show later on in the demonstration, it's featured help and easy-to-use menus throughout, so it's a very easy camera to use. Obviously, in the year since the D50, something had to happen with the old screen, so Nikon's of course upgraded that to a nice big 2.5-inch model, and like most budget digital SLRs, it uses this to display your shooting information. So let's have a closer look at that. The Nikon D40, like most budget digital SLRs, uses its main colour screen to display all shooting information along with the various settings that you're currently using. However, Nikon goes one step further with the D40 and makes it a bit easier for beginners with various graphics on the screen. Keep an eye on this circle on the left hand side as I adjust the F number here on the right. Now I'm just in Aperture Priority mode at the moment, and I'm turning the dial in the top right corner, and you can see that as the F number gets bigger, an iris on the left hand side is getting smaller. You can see it right here. Now what this is actually showing you is a graphical representation of what is really going on in the lens right now. As the F number gets bigger, the iris gets smaller, and this is just one of the many ways the D40 makes things easy for beginners. One of the other ways it makes things easy is with this question mark in the bottom left corner. At any point when you're using the D40, just press the question mark button alongside it and it will give you some help concerning the actual mode that you're in. Here it's giving us some advice about using Aperture Priority mode. Also, if the question mark is flashing, as it is just there, and you press the button in, you can see it's giving you a bit of advice. Here it's saying that the lighting isn't really good enough and we really ought to be using the flash. It's really handy. However, if you don't like this graphical representation, you can change it for something more traditional in the menus. So if I go into the menu system here, and you can see straight away it's the D40 is using the very clean, nicely designed menus of the D80 and the D200. If I go down to the setup menu, choose info display format, I can change it from graphic to a more classic approach. You should also see the wallpaper here. You can actually put one of your own pictures in the background. So if we choose this and go back to the main screen, you can see that the way the information is presented has changed. There's the shutter speed, there's the aperture. It looks like one of the screens that you'd get on top of a higher end digital SLR. You'll notice, however, that the settings down the side remain the same, and if you want to adjust any of those, you just press this I button once more and you'll notice that one of them has become highlighted yellow. I can now press OK and adjust that setting. This is the quality setting. I can change the JPEG option or even choose RAW. Now one of the other ways that the D40 helps beginners is with some example pictures. So if we go down to the white balance setting here, which is currently on auto, and have a look at the options, you'll see a little example picture here on the left hand side. This is for auto and it's saying, yeah, it's generally good for any circumstance. However, if I put it down to indoor, this is the kind of picture where you might use it. Or fluorescent, daylight, flash, cloudy, shade. It's all there. It makes it very easy to use. Similarly with the ISO setting. If we go into there, here's an example, the lowest ISO setting of 200, great for general pictures. However, as you increase it, may be suitable for action, nighttime shots, maybe indoor shots under very poor lighting. The D40 really does make things very easy. Now let's have a quick look at the playback options. If I press play, here's a picture of a landscape that we took earlier, and if I press the cursor up button, we can display various bits of shooting information along with flashing clipped highlights and a brightness histogram. This shows the range of tones in the image. Now you'll notice that there isn't an RGB histogram option, as you may not expect on a camera that's aimed at beginners. However, there is a way to view RGB histograms with the D40. To do that, just go to the menu, choose the retouch menu, and we've got a demonstration of some of the retouching options on the D80. It's exactly the same here. If we go to filter effects and choose colour balance and choose the picture, you can actually see that this shows you red, green and blue histograms, along with the chance to actually really fine adjust colour. So the D40 can be as simple as you want, but also grow with you. The Nikon D40 is certainly a very easy camera to use. You could be a complete beginner, go out with this and come back with some fantastic quality pictures without any difficulty whatsoever. It's also a camera that's ready to grow with you as soon as you want to become more creative and learn a bit more about photography. A lot of this is down to Nikon's legendary metering system, which on the D40 just seems to get it right almost every time. We've got some great examples of that in our full review at cameralabs.com. The build quality and handling of the camera is also surprisingly good considering its budget entry-level status. It's a camera that overall you can feel really confident with. When you go out shooting with this, you know it's not going to let you down and you know you're going to come back with some great pictures. So what's the downside? Well, in terms of the D40, it's the resolution. This camera only has 6 megapixels and it's entered a market that's dominated by 10 megapixel digital SLRs. And that sounds like a big difference, those 4 megapixels. But as you'll see in our results pages at the website, it doesn't actually make that big a difference in practice with real life results. The 10 megapixel models do capture more detail, but not as much more as you may think. Also, in terms of the maximum print size you can get with 6 megapixels, it's sufficient for almost everybody. At photographic quality, you could make great looking A4 prints with this camera, and if you have a colour inkjet printer at home, it can stretch to A3 and still look pretty good, which, let's face it, is probably bigger than most people would ever want to print. So you may think, oh, only 6 megapixels compared to the 10 megapixel models out there, but honestly it really is sufficient for most people under almost every circumstance. However, if you find yourself falling in love with the look and the feel of the D40 and the way it presents its menus and easy to use help, but you wanted a bit of extra resolution, then you may want to consider the new D40X version. This is a model that's essentially identical to D40, but Nikon's put on the same 10 megapixel sensor as the D80, so you've got the choice between those two models. There is one other thing I should tell you about the D40 and the D40X, and those are the kind of lenses that are compatible with it. Now, as a Nikon digital SLR, you can attach almost any Nikkor lens to this body, but only the more recent ones will autofocus. Older ones will only manually focus. I've got a full explanation of that at our full review at cameralabs.com, so if you think you might be attaching older lenses or third-party models to this camera, it's well worth checking that out to find out which ones will autofocus and which ones won't. But those caveats aside, the D40 really is a very, very good camera. Once you can get your head around the fact that it hasn't got 10 megapixels, you can enjoy the fact that it just produces fantastic quality photos without any manual intervention. And if you do want to manually intervene, it's ready for you. So if you're a beginner, new to the world of digital SLRs, or want to learn a bit more about photography, this is an ideal camera for you. To check out how it performs in practice against its rivals, and to find out more about those lens issues that I mentioned a moment ago, please check out our full review at www.cameralabs.com.